Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. Let's get to it. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, Matt Melvin. Matt, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a real pleasure.
I have a lot to discuss with you. I said I feel like every episode now I'm saying I have no idea where this conversation is going to go, but that's what I love about being able to do this and meeting people from all walks of life and with different backgrounds. I'm going to pause and tell people that if you're looking at this screen right now, I'm going to give some immediate reactions. The bio that you're going to read below, I'm going to ask you to pause, read the bio, and then you're going to look at Matt and you're going to say, holy smokes, there's got to be a story here, because I was not expecting. I'm being honest with you. I'm from New York. Then my risk advisor. You're only going to get honest talk from me. I was not expecting that. So I have a bunch of questions, but I just want to start looking back at, and I want to get into some of the details. Usually I start at the beginning, but I actually want to start at the end here. Looking back at your incredible journey, your bio says things like, terrified and alone, Matthew began his prison term with the best of intentions. You seem like a very intentional person. There seems like in the story, there's a lot of calculation. Now, some of it miscalculation, which we're going to get into. But how do you think that outlook of trying to be calculated, planning things out, and then when things don't seem to go in that direction, still trying to productively think of the next step and not jump into anything too far ahead? How do you think intentions and misintentions have shaped your story?
There is no calculation when it comes to prison, first and foremost. You don't have any rights. You're a piece of property, and they can move you at any point. So my planning, I'm a planner. I've always been a planner. It doesn't work in prison.
Right. But I'll give you an example. Like I read that line because it kind of hit me. Matthew began his prison term with the best of intentions. And I think you are the only person that's been on the podcast 130 something episodes that was incarcerated. I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't remember, or at least certainly with a story like yours. It's just interesting to me that a person can look back at the difficult circumstance that you had, and obviously bullied behind bars is your story. But do you still believe you had the best of intentions? Do you think that you had the right intentions? Do you think you said there are no right intentions, or no planning? So what is that?
My intentions was when I came in that I was going to spend the whole time I was in prison at the same facility, and that didn't happen.
And this is totally off Keep Hustling topic, but do you think that you think that the government does that on purpose?
Yes,
do you think that there's any way
absolutely.
to play for that? Like, again, I've never spoken to anyone who has been, I'm going down this rabbit hole, not having to do with hustle, but it impacts your story. So I'm just I'm curious about your thoughts after being in the system.
I was in 4 states, 10 different facilities in 16 months that I was in federal prison. Then I went to a halfway house for a month and a half in Albany.
I'm sorry that you had to be in upstate New York. It's amazing to me that you still smile. I am not in law enforcement. I'm not in government. Obviously, I think you'll agree that the laws are there for a reason, and people who break them probably should have some sort of punishment levied towards them. But a theft of a car and 4 different federal prisons don't line up when I'm speaking to you. You know what? Let's pause. Tell us a story. Take us there. Take us to right before in 2004. Take us to where you are, your mindset, and what happened next.
In 2004, I worked at a car dealership, Freedom Nissan, on Shelburne Road in South Burlington, Vermont. They didn't pay me my commissions. As a result, I impulsively chose to try to sell one of their cars, got caught. Instead of going through the mental health court, which would mean I didn't have a record today, we wouldn't be talking. Judge Jeffrey Crawford and Bob Wolford both decided I didn't meet the criteria. I went through the traditional court, came out with a record. In 2009, I used other people's information to try to work. The government then pursued me for 6 years, got a grand jury indictment against me. That's when I did the 16 months in federal prison, a month and a half in a halfway house.
Got it. So there was the car and then the background check situation.
Correct, yes.
This is going to sound like a crazy question. Do you regret it?
I regret all of it, yes.
There are those that say that you shouldn't live life with regret. Keep hustling is about moving forward,
Right.
taking the next step, moving forward. And again, I obviously someone commits a crime, we want them to regret the crime,
That's what I'm
obviously,
saying.
because
I regret
yeah,
stealing the car and allowing my unresolved anger, hate, disappointment, stress, anxiety from other people taking advantage of me for 35 years and not dealing with it properly. That is why I did what I did. If I had dealt with it properly, released that anger and hatred that I had, not been bullied for almost all my life, I think my life may have been different. However, as a result of my federal prison, I now have an amazing testimony to share with the world. I wrote an amazing book, and I now have a amazing relationship with Jesus Christ that if I didn't go to prison, I wouldn't have.
it's I'm reminded when I listen to you. There was a period of my life when I was big on Gandhi quotes, and I believe it's Gandhi who said that hate the sin, not the sinner, meaning the regret is of the sin of the action, but and obviously I can't even begin to imagine the pain that you're describing, and then even more being in the system that, dare I say, promotes pain or promotes pain onto others, not just serving time and being in prison, but the extracurricular mistreatment that you seem to be describing. Yet I listen to you speak, and it's almost like you wouldn't change it, for lack of a better term.
I've been asked that before. If I didn't go through all of the trauma I went through, I wouldn't have a strong testimony. I wouldn't be able to bring people to Jesus without going through the fire like Paul went. Paul spent most of his time in prison, and yet he was happy.
Yeah,
And
but
I
you
made the
weren't.
most of my time while I was in solitary confinement. Well, the institution may have had my body, they didn't have my mind. I know a lot of people that are allowing other people to live rent free in their head.
That's a very interesting perspective. And when we think about the whole idea of keep hustling, it's taking the things that happen to us in life and moving forward with them. Most people would say that being in solitary confinement or going through that circumstance made them crazier. I think we're all a little bit crazy. So that's why I said crazier, because you got to be a little crazy to make it in this world. And yet you're describing just the opposite. You're describing almost like a solace and a peace of mind, not of body. I'm not talking about body, right? You said they may have had my body, but they didn't have my mind. And it's almost like being in that circumstance, you got rid of the people who you let live rent free in your mind.
Absolutely.
And if you didn't have the time to sit there and analyze that, and you weren't such a thoughtful person in that, and you didn't embrace your hustle in that moment that you were going through, that wouldn't have happened. And therefore you wouldn't say, look, I have this amazing testimony. Look at what I've built out of this. You probably would be unable to share your story.
There are always two ways to look at a situation. I can look at something as an opportunity or as a challenge. This was an opportunity for me to look at myself, forgive myself, and then forgive others. And until I started forgiving others, I didn't have peace. I didn't have peace for most of my life.
Do you think you have peace now, or whatever that means? However you define it?
I am much freer than I've ever been in my life.
That's unbelievable. So that's what I'm saying. It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable story of hustle and inspiration to hear someone who, I don't think that you would say, hey, sign me up tomorrow, I'll go back to
Never.
prison. But I think it's almost like you had to get to where you are today. It's impossible to get to where you are today without that intense opportunity that you seized. Most people wouldn't have. And that's what I love about your hustle. But I feel like there's that, as you said, there's a little bit of that fire that a person has to experience in order to have that real change of moment, not just short term or surface level impact.
We all experience a cataclysmic event. Death, prison for me, loss of job are just a couple of examples that I can think of. It's how we use that. Do we sulk? Do we become bitter? Or do we use that as fuel to become better?
Give us a tool to get to the fuel.
Forgiving others, taking in inventory of ourselves.
Does forgiving others have to come from the other party, or or should a person just forgive for their own sake?
I had to forgive for my own sake. I don't look to other people for approval. What other people think of me is none of my business.
That's the rent free that you
Yes,
refuse to give.
absolutely.
I want to ask you about something which I don't want to. We're not gonna. I don't know how this is gonna go, but this is Keep Hustling, and we're real, so we're having fun here. You've mentioned your travels towards religion and how impactful that's been in sharing that message with others. It's no secret I'm an Orthodox Jew. I practice Orthodox Judaism, and I believe that it's not just that there's no atheist in a foxhole. I believe that there's no such thing as a true atheist in this world, because anyone who has real depth needs to have a place for religion and faith, whatever that may be. Can you take us to the moment in your journey where you realized that faith, whatever that faith would be, had to have a significant part in your journey, your hustle, your growth, and your ultimate success
In
and survival?
August 2015, I was driving on I-495 in Massachusetts in the middle lane going 72 miles an hour, which is pretty slow for me. I've been known to go 130.
Yikes.
When a Lexus SUV was traveling east, came down an embankment, crossed in front of my car, but by the grace of God, I was saved, I was protected. I believe that was the line that Jesus was drawing in the sand for me, stating, you're either going to do my will or you're going to do your own will, steal, cheat, lie, be dishonest, go to prison, come out, go to prison, come out. I didn't want that for my life.
So it sounds like you believe, and you're saying, and I'm not saying I disagree, I'm just pressing the point here, that every person has to make that choice. The question is just, when are they forced to make it? Meaning there is no halfway as it relates to faith and growth and promise.
90% obedience is 100% disobedience.
1 second, I want to internalize that. 90% obedience is 100% disobedience. Meaning, especially as it relates to faith or anything. That's interesting. That wasn't where I was going to take this, but I find that fascinating, that what you're saying is so many people who go 100% at almost everything in their life are okay falling short on faith and religion and religious practices. That's really interesting. Why do you think that is?
It's not a priority. When I was in solitary confinement, I started a rigorous protocol, habit, whatever you want to call it, reading my Bible every day, praying, exercising, fasting, and watching what I eat. And all of those disciplines have helped me to become the man I am today. Without having that time to develop that skill and hone it, it didn't start off with an hour, for example, of reading my Bible every day. I started off with 5 minutes, then I moved to 10, 15, 20.
It's fascinating to me because I just, when I'm listening to you speak, I've never had this thought on the religion argument. And that is that people who are the most disciplined should actually have the most faith, because that discipline should come from rooted somewhere. And yet very often people that are the most disciplined, the people who never miss a workout, they never oversleep, they never do things like that, are the people that are the least rigorous as it relates to their faith. So that's super fascinating. It's interesting to me because in that moment, you could have said your structure, as you've said already, your structure, your life was determined and controlled by others. What you ate, when you ate, not what you ate off the plate, but what was on the plate in front of you, for lack of a better term. When you ate, when you slept, when you were outside, when you were inside, when you showered, all those kind of things. And yet it was in that environment that you developed the best structure, which has impacted your life the most outside of that environment.
No question.
And that's most people would have said, forget it. When the light goes on, I'll wake up. And, I'm not going to exercise because I'm just sitting here all day and nobody cares about what I'm doing. And it's almost like I've often quoted on this podcast my 5th grade English teacher, Ms. Ginsburg, the character is when no one's looking, she used to say. And I think that maybe what you're saying is real hustle and real growth is developed and achieved when no one is looking. And in those moments where it is just you.
If a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound? Of course it makes a sound. Jesus is watching us more when we're by ourselves than when we're with others, because a lot of people are one person by themselves and a very different person when they're around others.
But that's because it's easy, right?
It's easy around others to some extent, but there's more pressure, I would.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's easier because a person feels like that the facade has to be there, because that's what society expects of them. It's just so fascinating to me that in those intense moments of solitary confinement, that's where the greatest growth happens. It's almost like, contents under diamonds, it takes the most pressure to get the most beautiful diamond. That it's like so extreme that rather than exploding and losing it, you were able to hone that hustle and that movement forward in the right direction and change your life that way. And I know a lot of people find faith in prison, but you're not even describing that. That's the interesting part. It wasn't like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it wasn't like you were in a prison and the people who you ended up spending time with were the people who were leaning in on faith, or you met a priest or a pastor and that's how it changed. Your story is so fascinating to me because it's so inward.
Because I had never done work inward. I had always looked outward. Therapist, men's groups, other people's validation, and it never came to fruition. What other people were saying, the therapy that I was receiving didn't line up. And until I started doing my own internal work, I wasn't changing.
I want to pivot here. First, I love your story. I want to pivot here, and you said nothing was off limits, so I'm gonna ask a question. If you don't want to answer it, that's fine. And I hope I ask it the right way. So if I don't usually apologize on my own podcast, but I'm gonna say it that way. And it's in your bio. What is it like being an adult who's diagnosed with autism? What is that moment like?
Scary. I never want to be put in a box, and you can't compartmentalize me.
Is there anything that's like relieving about it? Like now you can not be put in a box, but now you can see the picture or see why things are the way they are, or why, and therefore as a person like you're describing, again, I've done 100, almost 30 episodes here, and there's a few people that I've met who have put so much into their own growth and development as you, like realizing that that's a place of work, or how to get the most lift out of the work.
When the diagnosis came, that was when I started doing the most work. Absolutely, no question.
Why? Why do you think it took until that?
Because I was playing the blame game. I was playing the victim. I wasn't taking responsibility for my actions. I was seeing fault in others and not in myself.
Can I just say a crazy thought that came to my head? And this is a wild episode. This episode is like no other episode we've ever had.
Never a dull moment with Matt Melvin. Just
exactly. And I appreciate it. I used to have a very, very structured show, and then I've just really just the guests that I'm blessed to speak to, like yourself, has just helped me grow so much. It's so interesting to me that you have two statements that most people would say were diametrically opposed, and it was when you found out that information, you had that diagnosis, which was a somewhat light bulb moment on your life, on everything that had happened before, on the feelings of being bullied and outcast and everything else that you had described. And please correct me if I say anything that's out of line. And yet it was at that moment where you said so many people blame others. I would say so many people in those moments blame God. The people that, as you said, take shortcuts on faith. But so many people blame God. And yet you leaned into faith and leaned into God. There's something there.
In those times that I was in prison, I also went to every single Bible study. Jehovah's Witness, Scientology, Christian Science, all of those cults send in volunteers. I have done my research. I wanted to hear what they were saying, because we as faith need to know what other cults are telling people. And when people are in prison, they're missing that love, that father figure. They think that an institution is going to bring them some kind of all the answers, some kind of solution. And sometimes it just complicates things. But until I educated myself on what other cults are telling them, I can't be a good disciple for God. As well as I can't be a good disciple for God if I'm not in my Bible every day. If I'm not practicing what I preach, I'm not doing the work I need to do. And also working on myself. The people that are closest to me in my life are men and women that are working on themselves, that don't think that they have everything figured out.
Isn't it unbelievable that the world is divided into those who actually work on themselves and those people who think that they don't need to work on themselves, and very rarely do the two come together?
It is unbelievable. You can always tell if somebody's working on themselves by the conversation you have with them.
I have to ask you this next question, and this may go off the rails. I don't know. I've said that a couple times, and so far we've been pretty good. You used the word cult a few times. I assume that was intentional.
When I refer to Scientology, Christian Science, Jehovah's Witness, yes.
Interesting. Is there anything you want to say on that?
I think before you join an organization, because I've been a part of other men's groups that are cults. And the reason they're cults is because they indoctrinate you and try to convince you that if somebody is not a part of them, then you shouldn't talk to them. They, in Scientology, they call them subverts.
So, and you're saying that that is just the antithesis of your worldview, and therefore that's meaning everyone can have their own opinions, feelings, as long as it doesn't negatively impact you or others. And that's where you draw the line of closed-mindedness.
As well as individuals that are part of these cults cannot seek out medical help, a therapist.
I got it. I understand.
Anyone that would would tell them that what they're doing is not right. In other words, disavowing the organization they're a part of.
What do we miss from your story? If you say nothing, I did my job.
I think you did your job.
But this is a great conversation. It's a powerful conversation. There's a lot here. There's a lot in your story, and I appreciate you sharing it with us. Matt, as you know, we have a closing tradition on this podcast where we ask our guests to leave us with their favorite motivational or inspirational quote and what it means to them in their hustle. I feel like there's a good one coming. So with that, I'm just going to turn the floor over to you.
Casey Kasem, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
And if you keep reaching for the stars, you'll always keep hustling.
Amen.
Love that. This has been another episode of Keep Hustling. Remember, do well by doing good. And of course, and always, keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. The listeners are the most important part of this show. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more listeners. Plus, be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. We have some amazing guests and topics lined up for you, and we don't want you to miss out. And finally, if you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod on Instagram, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We would love to hear from you to continue the conversation. Thanks again for tuning in and supporting our podcast. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.